Hi everybody, Chris here from Truly Holistic. I thought it was time for an updates video. Like ever, new information coming through all the time, giving us more greater understanding. Probably not new information, but bringing more awareness to certain things, connecting the dots, okay? And I wanted to share it with you. So this video is going to be, very much about Ascension, because that's really our everybody's purpose. To be here is to ascend, okay? And let's not get, we're going to talk about what Ascension, what actually occurs with Ascension, but more from the emphasis that from an individual perspective, that it's where we can grow personally and we can evolve, okay? And that's what we're here all about. It's all about wisdom, essentially, okay? And a lot of it's about awareness of the potential and the capabilities you already have, okay? Every single one of us, okay? It's a journey to reestablish who we are. Those big questions: who we are, why we're here, what are we here to achieve? And what do I need to do next, and all these sorts of things, right? So I'm going to start off with Ascension, a term called Convergence, okay? And I got this term from actually watching a Marvel movie, 2, the second 4 movie, the Dark World, I think it's called. And this movie is all about convergence of the 9 realms, okay? So all these different realms, and Asgard's one of them, where 4 comes from. Earth is one of them, and a number of other places, okay? And every so many thousands of years, they all merge up and sync with each other, like just over top of each other, okay? And because the definition of convergence refers to 2 or more things coming together and joining into one, okay? So what's happening is, in regards to that movie, is all the realms are all coming, 9 realms, but all come and sync as one pathway, one portal, I guess you could say, right? And there's also a negative energy in that movie too, which they call the ether, okay? And that's essentially the sabotaging energy that's trying to stop, okay, light coming in regards to that merge, okay? What they call convergence. So you can kind of see how that connects with what we're going through now, is there's a lot of dark stuff that's trying to stop Ascension occurring, okay? The light coming in, okay? And we're going to talk a bit more about what that means, okay? So convergence, aka Ascension phenomena, is a cyclic thing, okay? It happens so many thousands of years, okay? Where all these things converge and merge into one, okay? And what is actually happening is your higher selves, okay, and you've got a number of them. You don't just have one. They all exist individually in separate realities, okay? Planes of existence, timelines, whatever way you want to say it. And I must mention, okay, that this is not happening at a collective level. This is an individual level thing, okay? We're all individually going through this, okay? Okay, the hoodwinked kind of idea is that we're all doing this collectively. I guess we are doing this collectively, but it's an individual process, okay? Now, when all your higher selves converge or merge into one, there's one pathway of connection from us here to our source self, okay? It's very much like this. I've got a tool, which is part of my Ascension chamber that I created, called the Ascendant, okay? And you can already see that these circles, right? These circles, each circle symbolizes one of your higher selves, okay? The big circle on the outside right here that is merging all these together is Source, okay? So this tool is a tool is called the Ascendant because it's really the convergence, what creates Ascension to occur, this alignment, okay, of all your higher selves into one, Okay, so we'll come back to this and talk a little bit more about that and how it works with the Ascension Chamber too, and a few of the other things. Now, this is very important because we're going to branch into other aspects of Ascension, but it will make sense by the end of it, trust me. Now the soul, okay, we're going to go to the soul, okay. Now the soul was a mechanism to recycle you before connecting back to source, okay. So picture this. You are incarnated through your heart, okay. That's one thing you need to know. You are reincarnated through the heart, okay. We call it the sacred heart. There is a gateway that sits behind the physical heart. That's why the heart, the physical heart, has a beat to it, okay? It's a physical manifestation of the vortex geometry, which is the geometry of flow, energy, that is coming through this gateway that sits behind the heart, okay? Now, the sacred heart is the space which is the opening of the gateway from this side, which sits right behind the heart, okay? That's where you're birthed, so to speak, okay? Into this form, where you're seeing through this interface the physical body into this reality, okay? Now, this pathway leads all the way from the sacred heart through the pathway of where all your higher selves reside, all the way back to the other opening on the end of the other of that gateway, which is your source self, okay? So what was happening for many, many years, thousands of years, or probably even longer, hundreds of thousands of years, that there was a program put in place, which is the soul itself. A lot of people go, well, watch out for that soul trap, don't go to the light. Well, the soul trap is the soul itself, okay? This program was a mechanism to recycle you before you could get back to source. Because when you get back to source, you have your free will, you have your freedom, you get to choose where you want to go next, okay? Now, when you can't get to source, something's controlling you, right? So someone has control of your soul, and hence why we hear the term, you have a soul contract, okay? Now, your soul is the trap itself. That's what we do need to understand, okay? Now, if you're someone like many of us, okay, that can't remember specific memories of your past lives, then that is validity to say that you were recycled back here against your free will. You didn't have choice in it. Because if you had choice in it and you chose to be here, why would you not be able to remember memories of your past lives? Okay, and I'll get comments, people saying, well, I do remember part. Very small percentage of people actually remember them vividly. We may have a bit of a feeling of how it can be, because the feelings can't be erased. Okay, the specific memories where we connect the dots can be erased, but the feeling of maybe deja vu, or that we've felt that before, or we know that we've been there before, they're feelings, and that can't be erased. But I'm talking about specific memories. Okay, so what we call free will now is freedom, and we're going to get into that as well, about jargon and terminology changing too. So coming back to this in regards to my Ascension Chamber, okay, is the number 7 keeps coming up. Okay, and what we're finding is that it's because we have 7 realities. Okay, so what you can see here is 7 circles, including the big circle that encompasses the other 6. Okay, so we've got 3 on this side, 3 on that side. Okay, so the number 7 has something common in regards to Ascension, and the Ascension Chamber is exactly the same. For example, I'll just point it around there, you'll be able to see it in the corner spinning there. That geometry there has the beamer in the side of it, but it's chestahedron. And when we rotate the chestahedron, it creates the geometry of the bell. It creates a vortex geometry, a levitational force energy. which is ascension energy. It's one of the 4 ascension energies. Okay, noble gases is another, and that's why we place the beamer in the middle of it. Now those tools combine with each other, amplify each other. But coming back to number 7, well, the chestahedron there is a 7-sided geometry. A 7-sided form. And it's also a geometry that was brought to humanity in very recent times, the last kind of 10 years, by a guy called Frank Chester, hence the name chestahedron. He also called it a chestahedron because the geometry in regards to our physical form sits within the chest, because our physical heart sits in the geometry of a chestahedron. Okay, so you're noticing that, okay, it's a 7-sided form, but it has reference to the heart, and therefore reference to the sacred heart, which is connecting us to our higher selves and our source self. Okay, source is ascension, and ascension is source. Okay, so 7-sided form. Okay, and again, this is a recent geometry brought through, and we've got to understand that. Okay, Frank Chester was intuitively guided to create that geometry, to bring it forth to humanity in recent times. And I think that's for a reason, okay? Because we need it now. We need to renew things. We need to let go of the old and bring in the new. And that's why I'm not necessarily hugely into pyramids these days, because pyramids they've had their time. But I think the chestahedron is something special. You can see the cat in the background. So what I'm noticing is the number 7's coming up in regards to it. Okay, and as we've already mentioned, okay, we are reincarnated through the heart. Okay, the heart is where it's at. Okay, now I keep getting told that we need to let go of the old and surrender to the new. Okay, and that's what we're seeing a lot of changes in the world at the moment. And also especially to embrace new jargon. I actually said the word Google jargon. And it's like, well, okay, I'll do that. Okay, new terminology. So a lot of the things that I had in my charts before, not necessarily are removing from the charts, we're just renaming them. We're giving them different names. Certain systems like chakra system is not valid anymore. Okay, and even, we don't call it free will that anymore. We call it freedom. Okay, and there's a number of others that we're changing the terminology. I'll go to the chart, it'll pinpoint me to something, but I've got this feeling within me. We get to the alphabet chart and it says you need to call it this now. Okay, so that's been coming through a lot. And I think why that is because with this convergence or merging of all the different realities, that each reality has different physics, different science, different terminologies, different languages, all these sorts of things that we need to embrace if we want to really connect to our higher aspects of ourselves. Okay? Because what I do know with the work I do here with dowsing and the true quantum healing is, there may be a situation where you could use 10 different words to describe it, but there'll be one particular word that has more power to it, that we can do the clearing and do the healing, and it'll have more of a profound effect compared to the other words, right? So the more specific we get with the terminology, the better the clearing we can make. Now, another thing that's been coming through is on my Heal With chart, there was a Heal With which never went to for as long as I could in regards to using the system. And it was orange and red photons on there. Okay, and photons is light, right? Didn't want me to call it photons, by the way. Didn't want me to use the terminology, but saying that, it kept going to that, but it kept pushing me towards the alphabet chart because it wanted to tell me something different about it, but it was trying to direct me there by going to the orange and red photons. So when I had, like anybody that has a session with me, they'll understand what I'm talking about here. I have a conversation essentially with my higher self, my source self. It's not just about finding a word and monkey see, monkey do. We have a conversation because we want to get understanding why we do a clearing. Okay, because that's just as much of the healing as the doing the clearing itself. So all of a sudden it said you need to heal this area of this person with orange and yellow light. And I was like, well, initially it said orange and yellow color, but color resembles light, right? Color therapy, light therapy. Okay, we're just using all the different colors, so different spectrums of light, right? So, so I was like, okay, we'll do that. And I started to do that a bit, and I was noticing people were getting big healings from it, right, by using this healing energy. So I looked into it more, and all the dots started to come together, right? And what it said was this light comes from the gateway that sits behind the heart, the sacred heart, okay? And straight away I was thinking, well, if we mix orange and yellow together, what do you get? Gold. Gold, right? Now, another thing that connected to me was the fact that we reincarnate through the heart. So I was thinking, phoenix from the flames, right? Reincarnation, right? That's an expression, right? Is that you rise from the flames, right? So that's reincarnation. And also the connection or symbolism of that orange and yellow light that comes from the sacred heart is fire. Okay? In regards to the elements, right? Fire. Okay? Because this is where we reincarnate. We get birthed at this end of the gateway into this form, into this reality. Okay? Now, another thing that we got was there's a particular qubit measure that I use called an Ascension Qubit. Okay? And that's great for increasing your intuition. And I got told with that particular qubit to use silver because silver anchored that energy in better than the copper. Most of my tools are made of copper. But with this particular qubit, it wanted me to make this particular pendant, which I make silver. And also said that it's giving off a blue light. Okay? So straight away when I was getting into these colours and light, I was thinking, well, where does blue sit with all of this then? And blue is, as we've got the gateway sitting behind the heart here, the sacred heart, it's orange. And when we get right down to the other end, and we get to source south, it's blue. Okay? So ascension equals source, source equals ascension. Okay? So I was thinking, okay, let's go with the elements here. Water, blue, water, right? So we've gone with the heart, the sacred heart, fire, at the other end, water. And what do we quite often say the best water is? It's at the source, right? It's at the source. Go to a spring, that's where the water source, right? Source of water. And the interesting thing about spring water is that spring water has ascension qualities to it, because what does it do? It levitates. It comes from an aquifer, and it goes against gravity, it goes against all laws of physics that we have. Okay, and the laws of physics, what they say is that if any force goes against gravity, it creates friction, so heat. But spring water is cold, freezing cold, and it stays that temperature. I've been to springs here in New Zealand where it doesn't matter what the temperature is outside. There's a river that's source of that spring water, and it stays the same temperature. Doesn't matter what the weather is like outside. It stays the same temperature. It could be below zero out, but that water will still flow. Okay. So that's defying what we know about physics within this reality. Okay? Interesting stuff. So, that's why we use these tools, these, the qubit measures and the tensor rings that we use to restructure water, bring it back to its source, its origin. Okay? So the dots are really connecting here. Now, another thing what we got into, we were looking at, fire, water, what's the other elements? Air and earth, right? Well, the earth is a simulation. It's the life as we know in the simulated program reality. Now, air, okay, and we're going to get back to the earthing technology or grounding technology of earth, and we're going to talk about that in a minute, but air is symbolic of consciousness. Okay? I find that really, really interesting because what do we get told? That we've only got minutes to live without air. Okay? If you're lucky. So what that tells me, consciousness is everything. Right? Okay, so coming back to earth, okay, and the whole healing aspect of earthing the grounding, when we go barefoot or touch the surface or crust of the earth with our bare skin, okay? And this is a science in its own, that we absorb negative ionization into the body, because the crust of the earth is negatively charged with ions, which are the good ionization, even though it's called negative. And as we go further up into the atmosphere, we get more into positive ionizations, looking at it like a battery. Now, they call it earthing because it's the healing energy of the earth. But this is where this theory is going to differ with that theory. Okay, now the reason why there's negative ionizations in the crust of the earth is because the crust of the earth gets embedded with lightning. Bolts of lightning all around the world that charge the crust of the earth. Okay? And lightning has a reference in, like a lot of the sci-fi thing, with the god of thunder, Thor. Okay? Is there validity and relevance to that? Yes, there is. Okay? Now, it's often noted when we absorb negative ionization into this form, it removes inflammation. Okay? It's anti-inflammatory, and we know that at the physical level, most conditions that are degenerative are inflammatory conditions or problems. Now, the one thing about lightning is source energy. It's derived from source energy, lightning. Okay? So the negative ionization that we then absorb from the earth is not from the earth itself, it's from source, because of the lightning. The earth simulation is only holding that energy for us to then absorb it. Okay? Now, one more other thing that I have found that grounds somebody, other than doing it the physical way and grounding yourself by going barefoot in the earth, or the beautiful earthing grounding technologies that you can use, is to be heart-centered. And do you know why? Because when we bring our consciousness into the heart space, the sacred heart, it connects us back to source. Okay, and that's where this earthing energy comes from, this grounding effect. Okay, when we are away with the theories with our mind, that's when we lose our grounding capability. Okay, so it's the understanding of that. Now, another thing, talking about the mind, okay, and I've done a lot of posts about the dangers of the mind, okay? Just like the soul being the trap itself is the word soul, the mind control is the word mind itself too, okay? And you'll see a lot of our dialect and terminology and language we use the word mind a lot. We need to raise it completely and use heart instead. Okay, because that's where we're being really hoodwinked and being controlled or mind controlled, thinking that it all happens here. No, it doesn't. It happens here. Okay, so what I've come to find because over the years I've had certain people that really resist healing. Okay, whether we're working with them directly or a loved one as being a conduit to heal on an individual that would never come to a session because, why would they want to do quantum healing, right? It's just too far-fetched for them if they're a mind-orientated type of person. What I've come to find is that the mind is so strong that it's strong enough to block healing. Okay, it is. Okay, now why that is because when we go into the mind, our consciousness goes into the mind, our awareness goes into the mind. We disconnect from the only place we can heal and create, and that's in the now. And we can only be in the now when our consciousness sits in that heart space. Okay. So what happens when we go to the mind? It disconnects us from the sacred heart, disconnects us from our inner wisdom, our intuition, our higher self, our source self. Okay. And when that occurs, then we can be programmed by anybody out in the external world. Okay. And therefore, you do not use the greatest emitter of frequency there ever has been, and that's yourself. Okay? That's why I keep saying the greatest fear we have about 5G and a lot of these things is fear, because all of a sudden, we use the greatest emitter constructively or destructively, against ourselves, and that's ourselves. Okay? We're more destructive than 5G. We have been for such a long time because we've manifested a hell of a lot of fear. We've been very good at that. It's time to change it. It's time to change it. And that's why we're trying to get everybody out of this field of this idea of duality, get them into neutrality, get them heart-centered, get it out of the mind. And then you will realize how powerful you are. Okay? Because in all reality, a lot of these tools that we're creating here are just training wheels to eventually get to the point where you realize how powerful you are. And that everything is created by you. It's up to you. Okay? So I'm going to leave you with this last note. And this is a note from Wayne Gados, who creates all the crystalline energy tool range. So tools such as the sun ring and the neutralization ring and some of the tools that I sell here. I'm a distributor of their product. This is what he said. A misconception that many have about ascension is that they will be leaving the earth. The process of ascension is that of connecting and integrating with our higher bodies. So establishing a connection with our higher selves and our source self, which happens within us. Not up there, not over there, not up there, within us, through here. And then heaven comes to us, comes to earth. Okay? There's all this thing about, the earth's trashed, No, that's our perception of what it, and then where we create that, and therefore then we see the reality of that. We can change the perception and see that heaven is actually here. And when we do that, then we create that. Okay? Anyway, I hope you've really enjoyed this video and this update. If you've got any questions, post below. Otherwise, I'll see you next time.